This is the Apple Watch Series 10, and today I'm going to share why I think it's finally worth getting. We'll talk about the life-changing features, the nice-to-have features, and why I think Apple made certain decisions on this new watch. Most people that I know that have an Apple Watch always say that their watch is dead and that's why they're not wearing it. And I think the biggest update to the Apple Watch Series 10 is fast charging. So now my friends aren't tracking their workouts, they're not tracking their sleep because they're like, hey, it takes too long, I haven't charged my watch. In those scenarios, you can charge your watch to track 8 hours of sleep with just 8 minutes of charging. All you need to do is make sure that you have the fast charging cable, which is braided and USB-C. It needs to be aluminum around the edges if you're unsure. And you just need to plug that USB-C port into at least a 5-watt or greater charging brick. Not only that, let's say you want to get your day started and you don't have a lot of time, you can get 8 hours of normal daily use with 15 minutes of charge. Maybe you're someone who likes to be a little bit more prepared and not just have the basic necessity of battery. You can get up to 80% in 30 minutes of charge. So let's say it takes you 30 minutes to get ready in the morning, which I think most people, it takes you longer than that. You wake up, you put your Apple Watch on the charger, you start to get ready for the day, and then you know that your tan is there, so you need to hide it. You grab your Apple Watch, you put it back on, and you're ready to go. Now, why is it important to have battery? Because a watch without juice just isn't able to do all the cool things it can do. And the Apple Watch does two things that I really love. That's fitness tracking, so workouts, whether it's walking, running, biking, rowing, weightlifting, almost everything that you can think of. Most of the features on the Apple Watch Ultras and sports watches are available on the Series 10, even the $199 Apple Watch SE. If you do have an older watch where maybe the battery has degraded and it doesn't last as long as it used to, I would argue almost anyone with a Series 8 and older, it might be time to upgrade to the Series 10. Not only that, the battery also impacts the sleep tracking. I know most people have Apple Watches, but they don't wear it for sleep tracking. And with the new sleep apnea feature in the Apple Watch, it's going to unlock a ton of new potential. You'll be able to get information on whether you're elevated or not elevated for breathing disturbances, which could be a potential for sleep apnea. Not a diagnosis, it just invites you to go see a doctor and maybe get a deeper test to see if you have sleep apnea and if you need any kind of CPAP or any other devices like that. We'll talk more about that in my watchOS 11 video, which will be linked at the end. Now, when it comes to honorable mentions, there is one that's pretty close, and I almost wanted to put it in the life-changing category, but that's the size and weight. The new Series 10 is actually 1 millimeter bigger on the smaller and the larger size. So here we have the 45mm Series 9 and the 46mm Series 10. Overall, the screen is drastically bigger, the bezels are smaller, and the form factor is just slightly bigger. The height has also been reduced from the previous watches, and the weight has been reduced. So if I know a lot of friends also complain about the watch just being too big, they can't sleep with it, it's bothersome. This new watch is smaller, thinner, lighter, and I think it's gonna be more comfortable to wear. Now maybe you don't wanna compare it with an old watch because maybe you're not sleeping with that, but what about like a Whoop strap, which a lot of people do sleep with? How thin is it compared to a Whoop? In terms of thickness, they're relatively close. The Apple Watch does have the heart rate monitor that kind of bumps out a little bit. When it comes to length, they're pretty close, but the width is much thinner on the Whoop. So I could see how that could impact some people. I personally noticed that if I wear the Apple Watch, for a week or 2 weeks, then my body gets used to it and I forget that it's there. That may not apply to everybody, but I do invite you to try to train your body to feel comfortable wearing the watch if you do want to get all this beautiful sleep information. Another nice to have is the new Jet Black. This is the aluminum, and the Jet Black is so black. Look at how crispy that is. I can pull the Apple Watch Satin Black titanium next to it too. And the Jet Black does have a little glossy look to it, whereas the Ultra is more of a matte-ish look. They're still kind of a little shiny. The Series 10, the back is much, much darker than the Ultra 2 Satin Black. So if you're someone who wants something that's stylish and maybe it's very discreet, the Jet Black is the color to go with. Speaking of the Ultra, there are some features that were added to the Series 10 that almost bring it on par. One is the water temperature sensor, so now you can use the Series 10 for like scuba diving. When you go in a hot tub or a pool and you're swimming, you can see the water temperature on the device. I think that's very interesting. For some reason, I do a lot of cold plunging and I like using my Ultra to see what the temperature of the cold plunge is. They both now have the ability to play music and podcasts through the speaker inside if you forgot your AirPods. We'll talk more about that in the watchOS 11 video. And it's going to be carbon neutral depending on which band that you buy for this watch. Another big nice to have that might not be life-changing, I still think it's fascinating and truly amazing, is the always-on display can now drop to 1 hertz. So right now it's on and watch, it's going to turn off, the color is going to dissipate, but let's say you're wearing a watch and you want to see the seconds tick around. This watch face, the seconds is a line that goes up and it changes the color. Once the watch face turns off, you'll be able to see the seconds even when you're not operating the watch. Now you can see the difference. This is the Series 9 right here, Series 10, the 1 hertz display. These are both always on display mode, so they're technically off. is updating every second. You have the seconds marker, so it feels more like a real watch. I think that's astounding that they got to maintain the same battery life. They decreased the size of the watch itself, and they added more features like this. So if I tap both of them, now you can see this is what they look like when they're on. So having that always on display with a 1 second always going is very valuable. I know when I used to teach yoga classes, I needed that 1 second just so I can make sure that it ended class on time. So if you're someone who just needs to live life by the second, this is gonna be chef's kiss. This is a nice to have. Like, I'm not gonna be like, oh, you have to buy the new watch because you can see it brighter from a different angle. Yes, that's cool, but I don't think you need to buy a watch just for that. But let's check this out. So if I turn the angles right here, oops, you can see so much more of the screen. It just feels brighter. There's more going on. So it's just easier to glance at when it's at an angle. So you can just absorb the information. Let's say you're running or you're outside and you turn on you flip it towards your face and you want to see what it says. Boom. It's just a little bit better. Another nice to have is the new S10 SiP, which is the processor here. It's more efficient and they're using a new neural network to make the voice isolation better. So if you're someone who takes calls on their watch, I know my cousin does a lot, you're gonna get better audio in loud environments. Now, should you buy this watch? I think if you have a Series 8 or older, then it's worth upgrading. This watch does start at $399, which is almost half the price of the Ultra 2, which is at $799. So I could buy 2 Series watches for 1 Ultra in theory. But if I want to get, on par to the Ultra, so I can get cellular, I can get the bigger screen size, the 46mm, that does jump up to $529. So it's a little bit closer to the price of the Ultra. As someone who does a lot of activities like working out, I prefer the Ultra purely because of the better battery life and because I wish the Series watches could just get precision start. And that's when it just shows you that it's looking for GPS. Once it finds it, you press a button and then it goes. If we could just get that. I don't need the action button, but I would love to just use, this button, and that initiates my run. So that way I don't have to touch the screen to start an outdoor run or an outdoor bike or a swim. I would love that on one of these. Then it would make this watch a great competitive watch to the Garmin Forerunner 165 and the 265. But for now, because it's missing precision run, if you're trying to buy a cheaper watch, I'd probably go with the Garmin for fitness and working out. If you're trying to buy a higher end watch, then I think the Ultra and the Phoenix 8 can compete, but it's very hard to say that the Series watches can compete with other cheaper sports watches. Until we get that precision start on this watch. And the SE too. That'd be insane. $199 with precision start. Now, why do I think Apple made these decisions? Like a smaller watch, lighter watch, faster charging, better viewing angles for the screen. I still think there were a lot of things that were rumored around this watch. 10-year anniversary, there's going to be drastic changes, but the things just weren't completed yet is my guess. So these were the best upgrades that they could give us this year while they continue working on those major advancements in the background. Not to say that these aren't big jumps, but I do think Apple wants to get more into the health and the fitness space. So with sleep apnea, diving more into health, protecting us, knowing the amount of people that have iPhones and that use Apple Watches, and to be able to get sleep apnea notifications can drastically change our society. And 2, getting more in the fitness space. So with training load, the Vitals app, and recovery type information. Apple is going head on against Garmin and all the other recovery based wearables. And I love competition because it just makes it better for us. Every company makes something better. The other ones need to also do the same thing. So I'm excited to see what the future holds, because if Apple keeps adding these features, then I need to see a reason to keep my Whoop on. I need to see a reason to keep my Aura on. So they'll be invited to add even more features and value to their hardware devices. So I'm excited to see what the future holds, especially for the wearable space. I think we're literally at the beginning. There's gonna be a ton of stuff that we'll see. And if you wanna learn more about the software updates in watchOS 11 and how that impacts their new watches like the Ultra 2, the Series 10, as well as the Series 6 and later, subscribe, turn notifications, go watch that video. It will be linked right here. And make sure you're always using fast charging for all your Apple Watches, because the Series 7 all the way up to the most recent ones support it in some kind of way.